It's Cheer.
And this is Loathing.
We're here to talk to you about movies.
She loves everything. I hate everything.
This should be fun.
This is a morbidly beautiful podcast.
Hello once again to Cheer and Loathing. With me, Casey, as Loathing, and over there, Stephanie, as Cheer. It's been a while, but we're back, our bi-yearly episodes.
It has been a while. I don't think it's been as long as it feels like it has, but
I think
feels like it's been a while.
Like maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I don't remember what we last talked about. I don't remember the movies. Do you?
No, I don't. Was it Canadian movies?
It might have been. It might have been.
I think.
I still don't remember what the movies were though.
The Void and Infinity Pool.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
See, I remember our time together better than you do.
Yeah, well, forgettable.
It's okay. It means more to me. That's fine.
It's true.
I'm used to it. So, hi.
Hi.
Who have you, do you have someone that you can be terribly mean to in my absence? I feel like you're not able to get that out of your system when we don't talk as often.
I mean, I have some friends that I shit on a lot, but...
Okay. And they're still your friends?
No.
Frenemies?
No, just
people
just
you hate that you're just actual mean to?
No, they just ghost me.
Yeah, well, I mean,
It sounds about right.
So, we can only take so much abuse, and then we have to go crawl into a hole and recover.
Well, I'm glad I had that effect. I mean,
yeah.
It's like I started back at work last week, and a lady retired, and she and this other guy, they
just
hated
when
each
you
other.
Started, she was like, "I'm leaving. That's it.
No,
I'm done."
no. She retired at the end of last year.
Okay.
But she sent an email to the supervisor being like, say hi to everybody except for Art for me. Because there's a guy named Art. She fucking hated him. And he's
wow.
like, and well, he hated her too. And he tells me that. I'm like, well, to be fair, she did name you and only you. So that means she lives, or you live in her brain.
That's such a slay move, though, to be like, say hi to everyone except for Art. Mm-hmm. Art can go fuck himself. Like, what a queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're right, that does give him, gives him the satisfaction of knowing that he got to her in that way.
Oh, yeah.
Which you want to try to avoid.
Pretty sure he caused her to retire.
Oy.
Yeah, anyway. Enough about that.
No, this is good stuff.
Good gossip from the dish room at a specific school I'm not going to mention because there's already been too much information to probably given out.
Yeah, so I guess we have a couple of movies to talk about.
I guess.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited too, Casey.
It's a very nautical theme.
Yeah, this is your theme. You wanted to talk about boats, so we're going to talk about boats.
I mean, I remember, was it boats or did I just come up with Mary? And you were like, hey, let's just
came up with Mary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm usually the one that has to do all the heavy lifting and figure out what the theme is and everything. You're just like, I don't know, here's a movie. And I'm like, okay. So.
Well, I saw Gary Oldman. I'm like, it can't be that bad.
Right.
Yeah. Boy, was I right about that.
Yeah. So you said, hey, I want to talk about Mary, which I had insanely never heard of. And then I also saw that it had Gary Oldman, which I think you know how I feel about Gary.
Yeah. And it also has Emily Mortimer and Jennifer Esposito.
Yeah.
And it's got a decent cast to it.
Sure. No, yeah. I mean, on paper, this is I was like, hell yeah. And then I was like, well, okay, I'll pick another boat movie and we'll have a little boat theme and it'll be smooth sailing. Nothing can go wrong.
Really? Did you just throw a boat pun in there?
Did.
Was that on purpose or did you realize halfway through what you were about to say?
No, I mean, it was on purpose. It was a very intentional, very creative choice, and you're welcome for that. Yeah, as always, I'm bringing my professional A game to the show, so
Well, this
probably
is your
not the last
game.
boat pun you're gonna get either.
Oh God.
I mean, so are you?
The show's a fucking sinking ship already.
Are you ready to get on board and let's do this?
Let's set sail.
All right. So why don't you, since you picked Mary, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Mary is before we start talking about it?
I mean, I can try. That's about all I can do with this one.
Well, it's got a plot synopsis and stuff, you know.
I guess, yeah. How about let's just start with the Rotten Tomato stuff?
Okay.
Okay. So in short, Mary is about a boat captain guy who runs like tour things, and he's like, I want my own boat, and then he gets his own boat, and disaster happens. So that's the gist of it.
I don't think that's the plot synopsis.
It's the gist of it.
Is there not an official one somewhere? You just
there probably is, but I mean that's
But you just couldn't be bothered. All right, I couldn't
really be bothered. I've already got Rotten Tomatoes open, so it has a miraculous tomato meter score of 4%. The audience score is like 3 or 4 times higher at 17%. The critical consensus is misguided from STEM, or does that say stern? I can't find. My eyes are terrible. Stern to stern.
Stem to stern.
Is it stem to stern?
Stem to stern. Yeah, that's correct.
Wow, those R's look. I need to get bigger monitor things. You know.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
Okay, old man.
Mary wastes the talent of an outstanding cast and makes a soggy mess of its supernatural horror story.
Look at all the boat puns in that little synopsis. Good for Rotten Tomatoes.
Good for Rotten Tomatoes. So yeah, the boat. Or the boat, not the boat. The Mary. The Mary boat.
Well, I have a feeling this is maybe not going to be our best work. What do you think?
Yeah,
I think we might be a little rusty.
Well, you know.
We should not take long breaks. I feel like every time we come back, we are just like, I don't know what's happening. How do we do this?
Well, I mean, there's this big thing in my face. I don't know really what it's doing.
Really?
Yeah. It just keeps poking me in the mouth over and over. Wait, what?
Okay. Is this a bad thing or a good thing? I'm not quite sure.
I haven't decided yet.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try to steer us back on course. How about that?
All right. Right the ship.
This is going to be fun. Okay. So I need to before we go down this road.
Okay.
I need to say a couple things. I need to tell you that because you didn't give any information about this movie, because I know that you're just like you're half-assing it right now. But
I'm not half-assing it. That was all there was to this movie.
No, there's not. You usually come to the table with a much more researched
do I?
opening. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm remembering it differently. Maybe it's me and I'm projecting.
I always just go off the cuff.
Here's the thing. This is directed by, when we talk about on paper, this film should be fucking phenomenal. So not only do you have an Oscar winner in Gary Oldman, the rest of the cast, really, really talented, really capable. The director's Michael Goy. He does a lot of TV. He works a lot with Ryan Murphy. So he's been on Scream Queens, American Horror Story, Glee, and you may or may not think that's a good resume or not. But
apparently. But
yeah, he's done a lot. He also wrote and directed the 2011 film Megan is Missing, which is actually quite good if you haven't seen it.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah. So he's got a pedigree. And then the guy who wrote the film. Are you with me? Or are you going to go down a research hole while I'm talking?
No. I just couldn't find it on the page, but I found it. We're good.
I promise. I'm not making stuff up.
Oh, we never know with you.
Okay, so the guy who wrote it is Anthony Jaswinski. And he wrote The Shallows, which, if you haven't seen, is quite good and is also like a ocean movie, obviously, like a different kind. It's got about sharks, but The Shallows is great.
Oh, the one with Blake Lively.
Yeah.
Okay.
He also did a horror movie called Christie, which is an indie film that is actually like really solid as well.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is somebody who's got some chops, who's like proven himself. The concept is actually I think really interesting. Like when I read it, I was like, that's probably going to be pretty cool. Basically, I guess the shortest way to summarize it is like Christine on the water. But like, it's a cool concept of people being like trapped down the middle of the ocean on a like killer boat.
Right.
I think that's cool. I think that's interesting. It has a lot of potential.
Sure.
Hey, don't sure me. You picked this fucking film. Like, there was something about it that you were intrigued about.
Gary Oldman.
Okay, yeah. And honestly, that should be enough. Like, Gary Oldman it is like, can do no wrong, in my opinion.
He did wrong this time.
Apparently he can do wrong, but up until this point, I was like, Gary Oldman, like, honestly, this film, and I was really like, why haven't I heard of this film? Like, this film should be something that would be right up my alley. What's happening? So I want to say this. And you're gonna agree, and I'm gonna be a little self-deprecating for a moment, and I don't need you to pile on and go, yeah, that's true, you do suck, because I'm already going to acknowledge my flaws. And I know how you are. You're gonna be like, yeah, that's true.
Okay.
But I get it. I know that I have a bit of an obnoxiously obsessive love of movies. And I know that I tend to have this desperate need to defend most of them. And I know that I tend to love everything. So when I recommend a film and I'm like, holy shit, guys, you've got to see this film. I know that some of you, present company included, take that with a very, very light grain of salt. And you're like, that's cute. She likes everything. Who cares? But when I choose not to recommend a movie, especially one starring Gary Oldman, you should take note of that.
It's almost like me recommending you watch a movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is insane that it's happening, and yet here we are. This film is, I don't even know where to start, and I don't even know how much time we want to spend on it. But I will say, we spent too much time already, to be honest. I will say, and it's not long. It's like an hour and a half. It's a really good length.
That's what she said.
Did she though?
No.
It's really dull. And I almost never say that. Like, I'm not, Casey says that all the time. He's like, oh, I was bored. And I'm like, you suck. Yeah. I was so upset. And there were scenes I had to rewatch because I would realize I'd been watching 20 minutes and couldn't tell you one thing that happened because I was like zoning out. What is so funny?
No, because I did the same fucking thing, but I just didn't rewind it. I was just like...
Yeah, but you always do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep for like at least half an hour.
Yeah, of course you did. Yeah. I watch movies... I am somebody who's like, takes the art of watching movies very seriously. I get very invested. I put my phone down. I put my devices down. I watch movies, especially if I know I'm going to talk about a movie. You know, I really want to be invested so that I can have intellectual discourse about it. I kept unintentionally zoning out and realizing like, what the fuck just happened this past 20 minutes? And I would have to rewind it and watch it again. And I was like, how is this so uninteresting? Like, at a minimum, I feel like this movie should have been, and this is like, it should have been way better than this, but at a minimum, it should have been like, just okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, you should have been like, it's nothing to write home about. It's not phenomenal. It's not going to blow your mind, but it's fine. It's a fun little watch. I mean, it's not, you're not going to hate yourself for watching it. I don't understand how this movie manages to be so bad with everything all its resources. And like, we talk about technical aspects of the film, and that's something that's very important to you. Technically,
it's fine.
I mean, they had money. The cinematography is really good. The shots on the ocean are really lovely. They know what they're doing, and they have, like I said, they have resources. It looks really good. It sounds good. It's like there's nothing, air quotes, wrong with it on that level. It just, every single time they have to make a choice, they make the wrong choice. They make the most uninteresting choice possible.
Right. Yes.
And it's, how is that? How do you have this kind of talent at your disposal and just squander it in such a obscene way?
Yeah, I don't know how they got the talent they got. I'm going to go off on a side note for a second.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of like storms in this movie. Like that's good.
Yeah.
And it just started thunderstorming outside here. So that's kind of spooky, I
gosh.
guess. So you may hear it. Or my power may cut out. So there's also that.
Oh my gosh, this is fun.
You never know what's going to happen next. Anyway, yeah, I don't know how they got the cast that they got, because, I mean, minus Jennifer Esposito, who, if she just reads, oh, detective, I'm in. It's not a good script. Like, you can tell Gary Oldman's trying to do things with the words that are on the page in front of him, but not even he can pull it off. Like, there's one part where he's like getting super excited about a boat, and it's like, it didn't feel natural. The language that he used and the mannerisms, and it just, if you're gonna cast Gary Oldman, give him something to work with. And same with like Emily Mortimer, she's good. Like, I loved her in the Newsroom, like fucking fantastic in that. But here she's just kind of like is there. And then the whole like intersplicing with the detective things, cool idea. On paper, very, very poorly executed. Like, there's nothing redeemable really about this movie.
Yeah. And I would have expected, I've seen really good actors in really bad movies.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end of the day, I walk away going, you know what, that movie sucked and it was not worthy of the talent that it got. But at least I expected to be like, at least Gary Oldman killed it. You know, like, at least I could watch him and be excited about him. And yeah, the script sucked and lots of bad choices, but he was riveting. And I hate myself for this. I can't even say that. I was so bored by Gary Oldman's performance, which is bananas. Like, that should never, ever happen. Even when he was given something, not much, but even when it was like, okay, now you have to be like all, you know, he fights a lot with his wife, and that's most of the film, is these really like intense confrontations between them. And you can tell they're both trying, like, they're both very, very good actors, but everything falls so flat. Like, even I'm just like, I'm so disinterested in every single aspect of this. Like, Gary Oldman's character is like a nothing character, not compelling at all. There isn't one scene in this where I was like, well, at least like that scene was really well handled. It really is just one boring thing after another. There's no tension, there's no creepiness, there's no like suspense, there's no moments of like shock or horror or any, like, nothing. Yeah. How is that possible?
And even the quote unquote jump scares were telegraphed a mile away. Like, you knew something was going to. Were there even any
jump scares? I like never even had a reaction.
No, I mean, I never didn't react either. But I mean, what they would consider a jump scare, I suppose.
Yeah, and again, like we talk about on paper, I mean, some of the stuff that happens is horrific, and we should be invested, and we should be like, oh, that's awful. Like, you're dealing with a mother and father and their children, one kind of young daughter and one older teen daughter. And, like, the kids are in peril, and that should be investing, but it's not. Like, and I'm not saying, like, oh, who cares? But it's just like, but honestly, I am kind of saying who cares, because you're never made to feel anything. And it's just, I don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah.
I was really upset by this film, and in a way that I'm almost never am. You know me.
I know. I'm aware.
I was like, you know, to the point where I'm like, am I what? Like, is there something wrong with me? Am I in a bad mood when I'm watching this? Is there, like, I broke it up into two settings because I was like, I'm not feeling this at all. So maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm just not feeling it. I need to try to watch it on a different day, and it'll be better.
Nope. Not at all. Yeah.
Soggy mess is a great description, Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. I wonder if it's the setting, if that's a big issue with this movie. And there's something about boat movies where it just kind of gets stale, because they just, like, they do a set piece and then they'll show the fucking boat sailing or in the water and the horizon and sunset, and then they'll go back to the boat, and then they'll show another wide shot of the boat on the ocean. They'll keep doing that because they run out of shit to fucking show. You're on a boat the size of a bedroom, and it's just like, what can you do with that for 90 minutes? And I feel like that's why they had to kind of break it up with the whole detective things, because if they just ran it straight from boat to boat to boat to boat to boat to end, it would have been 45 minutes of just nothing but boring bullshit. And that's the problem with, and not even like isolation movies, because there are isolation movies where people are in a single room or locked in a house or something for the entirety of the movie, and it's compelling and it's entertaining and there's tension, but there's no tension here. It's just like, I can't remember the last time I watched a movie that took place solely on a boat that was good.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because a lot of times, like, I feel like we have this situation where we'll watch a film and it's, I don't know, let's just say like it's an art house film and you're like, you hate it, but then you're like, yeah, but I hate art house films, so I hate this one too. And then it's like, well, okay, that doesn't really say much. But I like boat films. I think this premise is inherently creepy. I think the idea of being stranded out in the middle of a vast ocean is terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
I think I have seen boat movies that I really enjoy. I think that the claustrophobia of it is adds to the tension and the fear and the how unnerving it is. Like, again, like, I'm predisposed to love this film. So for it to miss on almost every possible level that's what I'm saying. It's like you said, like, when you say you love something, it's like, oh shit, it must have been great. When I say something is not good, it is not good. And I'm an apologist. Like, I am looking for a reason to tell you. I would normally come in here and say, you know what, here's what didn't work, like the script is a little weak, like there's not enough tension, whatever. But, the performances were really stellar, or it looked really beautiful. Like, I would want to tell you what worked about it, and I would want to give you reasons to watch it. I want that so much, guys. I'm not trying to be a hater. I don't have anything positive to say about this other than I think technically it's made well. Like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't look like shit. It's not incompetent. It's just nothing. It's not even meh. And it's not even, and it's also not like bad in a way that's at all fun. It's not like, oh, this is a train wreck, you got to watch it because it's kind of hilarious how off the rails it goes. It's like music that is a beat behind, it's just like slightly off tune or something. You can't quite even put your finger on it, but something's not right. It's like that. It's just a little bit, it's a beat behind on everything and never hits its mark. Yeah.
I mean, it's weird that we agree on basically everything.
I know. I don't like it at all. Ew.
It's strange. And you thought we were going to have a bad time with this particular week because we're rusty and shit.
This is a bad time for me. This is not fun. I would much rather be like, I would much rather like argue about it because I'm defending a movie and being excited about a movie and you're being your normal like asshole self. Like, that would be fun. But for me to be pulling a Casey, that's not fun. They're really upsetting to me. It's bad.
Come on. Don't you want my wonderful life?
It's not your life. It's your like hatred of everything. I don't want that.
I mean, that's my life.
I mean, the good news is that I do think there's potential still for us to fight in this episode.
Oh, 100%.
And to disagree.
Because I know you love the next movie.
But it's not going to happen here. This is not. And I do want to say, I don't think we need to talk about this much longer, but I do want to say that I thought it started well. Like, it has that kind of cool opening quote about a witch seeking revenge.
Yeah, which I thought was a little strange. But I mean, because I didn't know what it was about going into it.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything? I know. But okay,
well, yeah, it's interesting because they sort of, the idea is that there's like a siren. Gary Oldman buys this boat at an auction, and it has this like carving of a siren on the front of it. Mm-hmm. And they sort of are hinting at the fact that there is this like siren aspect, like he's being seduced by this boat, and it's calling to him and it's compelling him to buy this boat. Mm-hmm. But then, like, it's actually a witch who is, the story is, like, so muddy to me, but she got her children taken away from her or something, so now she, like, goes and, like, tries to seek revenge and take other people's children. Right? Something like that?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
But it's not, like, it's like you have this, like, really cool aspect of, like, the Greek mythology and the siren right there, but they don't really use that at all. It's like, the mythology doesn't make any sense. And, but yeah, it starts off really good. And it starts off with, like, after that quote, you get this black screen and you just hear people screaming, which I always find really compelling when you just hear this audio in the background, but you're not really seeing anything. And then the first scene is, like, you know, basically, like, the ship being kind of blown up and stuff. And then it goes right to the detective setting where Emily's character is being interrogated by an investigator, and she's trying to figure, and you know, at that point, you know that the children are alive, but everyone else on the boat is dead, and they suspect her of doing it. And so she's telling her story of, like, what actually happened. Obviously, they think she's insane because she's like, this witch, like, came and possessed us and killed everyone. So just so anybody cares, that's the gist of the story. But like I said, it starts off where I'm like, okay. And again, I went into this movie thinking that I was going to love it because it had everything that I should love.
Mm-hmm.
And when you pick this movie, I was like, I don't know why you're picking this, but this is like, thank you. This is such a gift. Like, I was so excited that you picked a Gary Oldman movie for me. And I love boat movies and I love, like, supernatural type stuff. And it's just, I don't know, I thought it was just going to be amazing. And pretty much the first, like I said, I was compelled for the first, like, minute maybe. And then afterwards, I was.
First frame.
I wasn't compelled. There wasn't another minute in this film where I was, like, invested and cared and felt excited about what was happening. And not even the climax. You know, sometimes it can be really dull for a while, but then the end sort of saves it a little bit. And I know you hate that because you're like, I shouldn't have to watch a whole movie to, like, you know, have a good, like, 10 minutes at the end.
Yeah.
But you don't even get that. Like, even the climax is the climax is probably where I was the most checked out, where that's the part where I had to rewind it because I was like, what happened? It was,
Yeah.
I was really angry, and I'm never angry like this watching movies. So I don't know. I guess kudos to you for finding something that manages to, like,
That's twice I've done that to you now.
Turn me into Loathing, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
At kind of at best and worst, I thought this would just be a generic paint by numbers movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
It was to an extent, but it was just like the paint by numbers made for somebody with no hands. It's just like one, and you use your forehead to smash against the table to color it in. Like, that's all this was. It was generic, but poorly made generic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, at worst, it should have been meh. It should have been, like, nothing to phone home about, but, you know, fine. It should have at least been fine. I don't even think it's fine. And that's crazy.
Yeah. Especially with what, like, they had.
I feel like you have to try to make something, like, miss so hard. Like, it's like, that has to almost be intentional, because I feel like even accidentally, given the talent you have, you should have, like, gotten some stuff right.
Yeah. But, you know, like you said, if they had a 50-50 chance to do something right or something wrong, they just picked the wrong thing every single time.
Yeah.
It's like they flipped a coin and built the movie based on coin flips.
Yeah, I was reading some reviews, and there's a lot of the common theme is that, like, it feels like every time they had a choice to make, they made the wrong choice. Mm-hmm. Every single time. They made the least interesting choice every single time. Which, again, yeah, I mean, you would have thought just batting average, like law of averages, like some stuff would have landed. Like I would at least been able to be like 50-50 or something. But, like, gosh, I can't tell you one thing that I thought worked, other than I think the cinematography was pretty good. But, I mean, yikes.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next movie, because this one is just like, ugh, I don't want to think about it anymore.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, so this was my pick. The Boat from 2018.
Or 2019, depending on your source.
I saw both dates. We'll just go with 2018 for fun here.
Okay.
I think it's because it was film festivals in 2018 and then 2019 like actual wide release.
Yeah.
So that's why you sometimes get those different dates. Who cares? Anyway. I'm going to give you a description. And I actually did my homework unlike Casey, so you're going to get a guy in a boat. One. Stop.
Did it for you.
Stop
Got it. Done.
Are you going to let me finish?
No.
Well, okay. I guess that's our show.
Go on, do your stupid synopsis.
Damn. All right. The Boat is a 2018 Maltese thriller drama film directed by Winston Azzopardi. I guess is how you pronounce that. Azzopardi in his directorial debut. It was written by Winston and Joe Azzopardi. They are a father and son team. And Joe actually stars in the film. And he is the only cast member in the entire film. There is one person in this whole film, one location, and it has almost no dialogue.
Well, it has zero dialogue. It has because dialogue requires two people.
Okay, it has almost no spoken lines.
There you go.
All right, so it's based on a short film called Head, for which the okay.
I think I watched that one the other day.
How
actually.
old are you? How old are you? Seriously?
Well, emotionally speaking, like 4 to 8.
All right, probably generous, but all right. It's based on a short for which the filmmaking duo picked up Best Short Film Award at the Rome Film Festival in 2016. The film premiered in 2018 at Fantastic Fest in Austin, which I'm going to next week, my favorite film festival. It was also, I love how you're like, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
It was also shown at private viewings during the Cannes Film Festival in 2018, through which it secured a number of international distribution deals. It received a 78% critics rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and Winston was nominated for Best Director at the 2019 National Film Awards in the UK.
Why didn't you give the audience score? Because the audience doesn't matter.
Because you usually do that part, and I'm just giving you my little background synopsis. You can cover that in a minute if you want to let me finish. If not, you can keep interrupting me every 5 seconds.
Yeah, well, I'm rambling a little bit.
I'm not rambling. I'm telling you the backstory of the film.
That's
exposition, what we're here to do.
Which is rambling. But go on anyway. Continue.
Jesus fucking Christ. It has been described by critics as unique, discomforting, and chilling with a clever and twisting dialogue-free screenplay and a great performance from Joe. All right. I'm done for the background before I give my initial thoughts. But you go ahead. You were dying to say a bunch of bullshit, so say some bullshit, and then we'll get into it. Or do you just wanted to say it when I was talking?
No, I got bullshit to say.
Okay, say some bullshit.
So like Winston and Joe Azzopardi. Like when I was a kid, I had a hockey coach named Steve Azzopardi.
Okay, great story.
And he was also an umpire in my baseball league sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
That's
Casey.
Fascinating life.
Really good stuff. Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear. It also has a 60% rating audience score, which is the only one that really matters.
That's not terrible. You act like that's horrible.
It's not terrible, but it is lower than the critic score.
Sure. I would expect that for a film like this.
Yeah, because, Anyway.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So, yeah, The Boat. That's all.
Okay.
Continue with your why this is a masterpiece and how everybody in the world should go see it, and that it deserves every acclaim and award ever made because it, again, a masterpiece, a work of art that deserves everything. Go.
Okay, so I just need to tell you that
Now you have to figure out a new word for masterpiece, don't you?
No, I'm not gonna. Well, I mean, look, before I give my assessment, I need to say that the second I figured out what this, because when I picked it, I knew very little about it. I was just like, okay, I haven't seen this one or heard of this one really. It seems interesting, and it seems like it would be a good companion film for Mary. Like it's a kind of a similar premise, and it would be a good contrast compare kind of conversation. And then the more, and I knew it was like, it had gotten some critical buzz and stuff, and so I knew it was supposed to be like a decent film. The more I like kind of figured out about it, and as I'm watching it, I was very worried while I was watching it, because I feel like this film is like the culmination of everything that you hate. It is. I mean, it's like kind of your very definition of art house. It is a quiet film. It's got one actor, pretty much no spoken. There's a few spoken lines, but very, very few. It's mostly real-time supernatural survival film with a lot of mystery. It's got a lot of unanswered questions. The end does not tie things up neatly. It's very open-ended where you have to kind of interpret what's going on. It is. You know what's funny? So one of the words that I would use to describe this film is atmospheric, which for me is always a good thing. But I was on a podcast recently. We were talking about the word atmospheric and how like a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction to it because atmospheric is often used to be boring. It's like atmospheric means nothing happens and it's not scary. It's just all moody. For me, I love the shit out of that kind of stuff, but I think it does give those art house connotations where people immediately think, oh, so you mean not scary. It is also a film, and this is where I was really like, ooh, Casey's going to really struggle with this one. You have got to pay attention to it. You cannot casually watch it in the background. You cannot do the Casey thing where you multitask and you sleep a little bit and you sort of like play video games and shit. Like if you don't really watch it, you're going to get absolutely nothing out of it. Because again, there's almost nothing said in this film. So if you're not paying close attention, then you're just going to be like, what the fuck is even happening? Which I'm sure is what you did. But it is absolutely like when you watch it, anyone who watches it, you're going to know that this is a love it or hate it film. You're going to think it's absolutely brilliant or you're going to be bored to tears. And that really depends on your relationship to film and your expectations and how much you need to be overly stimulated every minute of a movie like Casey does. If you're in the art house crowd, you're probably going to think that this is pretty spectacular. You're going to, like me, think that if you really invest in it, it's a very nail-biting, it's very unique, it's very intense. But if you are not in that crowd and you are in Camp Casey, this is not for you. So as soon as I watched it, I was like, I know exactly how this podcast is going to go. I know pretty much every single thing Casey's going to say. I know exactly how he's going to react to this, and it made me very stressed out and uncomfortable. So that is my little segue into this film, my long segue into this film.
Mm-hmm. I just want to make sure you're done before I, say anything.
Oh my God, you're going to make sure I'm done before you say something? That's crazy.
I know.
I'm done.
Okay. Couple of things in there.
Yep.
I did pay attention to it.
Okay.
And I have some contradictory points to what you said.
Okay.
I feel the complete opposite, that you could have turned this movie on and watched the first 10 minutes, came back in the last 10 minutes and been like, oh, I missed nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to pay attention to it really at all. And for once I actually paid attention to a movie that I didn't have to fucking pay attention to. God. And I should let you know that I need to see a doctor about my brain because I'm 100% sure I have ADD.
You don't have to let me know that.
No, it's like I met a friend recently who has ADD, like legitimately diagnosed by like 4 doctors. And she's describing all the things she does. I'm like, that's me.
Yeah.
like she can't watch movies. She cannot sit down and watch a movie. That's it. Like she does not watch movies because 4 minutes in, she's on her phone. She's walking around doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, that's me for most part.
Do you feel like it's maybe problematic that you are a co-host of a movie podcast and you're not really a movie fan?
I love movies, but I just can't sit still.
But I just can't watch them.
Yeah, I can't sit still. I'm telling you, I need like constant brain stimulation or I go fucking mental.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like if I'm editing anything, pictures, a podcast episode, movies, whatever, I'm sitting at the computer, I will have a YouTube video going, I will have music playing, and I will be doing whatever else I'm doing, either playing a video game or editing or whatever. I have 4 fucking things going on in my head at once. Like, so sitting down and watching a movie like this, I was like scratching the chair, not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And this is a bad choice for somebody like you. Like, and I knew that. I didn't do it intentionally, but as soon as I started watching it, I was like, oh boy.
With all that said, though,
Casey.
all that said, though, I did not hate it.
Okay.
I was very middle ground with it.
Uh-huh.
I was, like you said, you're either going to love it or hate it. I neither. It was just there. It wasn't poorly shot. It wasn't poorly acted. The plot was boring as fuck and nothing happened. But if you're cool with watching a guy in a bathroom for 47 odd minutes, cool. That's your jam. And like I said, small isolation movies can be riveting. They can be good. They can be attention grabbing. I didn't get that with this. You said atmospheric. I did not get any atmosphere at all. I think the color grading of the movie hurt it severely. It was too bright. It didn't have any mood to it. Like I go back to something, one of the art house films that we watched that I actually liked was Antlers, right? And I found that what made that movie as good as it was how it was graded. The color told a story. The color here was just neutral. There was, or maybe even a little too bright for the atmosphere that I would have wanted from something like this. It kind of killed the tension for me. Every time I looked at the screen, it was bright and sunny, and that can work if that's the intent. Like you look at something like Midsummer, where it's all bright and summery, and that adds to the movie because it's scary and daylight and whatever. Maybe that's what they were trying to do with this, but I didn't get that. I didn't feel the sense of dread that he should have felt or that he was feeling. I didn't feel that because it was too bright. It didn't have that tone that I was looking for, like maybe like a darker blue in the shadows or a little bit more red in the highlights or something like that, just to make it moodier. And that's kind of what I was like, okay, I'm not feeling the tension because what I'm seeing is kind of like disassociating with my brain what tension is. And like you said, being trapped on a boat in the middle of the fucking ocean is goddamn terrifying. That's like one of my worst nightmares. Yeah. But I didn't get that feeling at any point throughout this movie with him.
See, that's insane to me. Like, I'm not surprised you said that in any way, shape, or form. But it is, for somebody like me and my experience with the film, that's bonkers. Because unlike the previous film that we watched, this one had me, like, I was invested. And you're not wrong when you say, like, if we're just talking about plot, you don't really have to watch this film. Like, I could tell you in 2 seconds, like, what the plot is, and there isn't anything that's going to happen outside of that is going to change the plot or add to the plot. Because this isn't a plot movie. This is it's like a survival film. It's like it's like I said, it's almost real time, and you are trapped in this boat with this guy, and it's very, very claustrophobic. Like Casey said, he's mostly trapped in a boat bathroom, and it's tiny, and the set is tiny, and I was reading about kind of the making of this film, and they were talking about like the challenges of trying to film, and how like they're basically like the cameraman's like on top of the main actor, and it's all very claustrophobic while filming, and they're really recreating that as much as they possibly can. It's very like it is very I don't know, for me, I felt it. I felt what that would be like. I felt the terror, I felt the panic, I felt the claustrophobia, the anxiety, all that stuff. And that's really what this movie is. This movie is like kind of basically one man's struggle for survival. I mean, there's some supernatural stuff. There's some really interesting open-ended questions about exactly what's happening with this boat. which we may or may not talk about depending on Casey's willingness, but it's mostly just about experiencing what he experiences and feeling that terror. And that's why I said, like, you have to really watch it because it is inviting you to kind of go along this journey. But yeah, I mean, there's a fair, I read this review and they said, they were talking about how much they loved it. And they said, I haven't read what the other reviews say, but I can kind of anticipate what I think they say. And I do this a lot where I'm like, I know what Casey's going to say. But basically, the typical response is, it's not a horror movie and nothing happens. And technically, depending on how you're interpreting it, nothing happens because it's all just he's in a boat and he's being terrorized and he can't get off this boat and he doesn't know what's happening and that's it. I mean, that's basically all that's going to happen in this film. But the thing that's happening is that this guy is experiencing intense terror and you're experiencing it with him if you allow yourself to be invested in that way. Like, there is shit happening. It's just, it's quiet shit, because it's like basically just one man against the elements.
See, I never once got the claustrophobic feeling. And I don't know, maybe that's the way they shot it. I don't think I've ever been on a boat like that before. So I can't tell you exactly how big the bathrooms are. I assume they're about the size of a fucking closet. If that, like a narrow closet, like a pantry closet sort of thing in the middle of a
like an airplane bathroom.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But it felt bigger. When I think of a claustrophobic movie, I think of like The Descent, where that was so uncomfortable to watch. Every second of it felt like they were being suffocated by rocks and crevices and all that shit. I didn't get that feeling here. It felt maybe the lens was too wide that they used, and it made the room feel bigger. Like, real estate photographers will use like a wide lens to make rooms look bigger on the websites and brochures and stuff, so it draws people in. And I feel like they wanted to show too much when they shouldn't. It should have never left his fucking face if they wanted to make it feel claustrophobic. He had too much room to move around. He had too much wiggle room. He had too much maneuverability, even with the cameraman in the room with him. I'm not, though.
You are.
Claustrophobic, you cannot move. You cannot breathe. I never got that feeling with this guy.
I don't think that claustrophobic means you can't, like, you're not confined. And claustrophobic, I mean, even in The Descent, they're not confined. They can move around.
No, but they feel like they are. It feels like they are. He never felt constrained or restrained at any point.
You're nutty.
I'm not. I never got that feeling. Not once.
I don't know how that's possible. It's just like, I mean, I felt like I was in that bathroom and I was like, and I immediately, even when the door locked and he couldn't get it open, I felt how much I would panic in that situation. And this is the thing that I noted about this film. This guy has some, and I don't want to get into, there's a lot of people that are arguing about like, oh, as a sailor myself, this isn't realistic or this isn't this or whatever. I don't know enough to like comment.
Right.
But I felt like he had survival skills.
Yeah. I mean,
certainly.
He knows his way around a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been dead in the first 5 minutes of this movie. Like, the second I was like confronted with any sort of potentially life-threatening situation, it would have been all over because I wouldn't have been that resourceful. First of all, I would have panicked. I wouldn't have been able to think straight, I don't think. And second of all, I wouldn't even know what to do. He had to know what to do. He had to be very clever, and he had to be very kind of MacGyver-y in a lot of the situations. And it would have just been all over for me. I would have immediately, the second I was like, oh my God, I'm like in the middle of the ocean with no resources. I'm trapped in this bathroom. I can't get out no matter what I do. And then it's just one thing after another. Then it's like the storm hits and then the boat starts flooding and he's going to crash into another boat. It's just like, it's nonstop nail-biting tension.
I don't know, but all those feel like familiar. And there is one, I don't know if it's a plot hole or if it's just like, you said he's all this MacGyver guy and he's very resourceful. The hinges are on the inside of the door. He had scissors, he had hammer-like objects or something he could use. He could have popped the hinges off the door in 5 seconds. and gotten out.
Yeah, I
right, like little
well,
things like that. I'm just like, okay, he can rebuild a boat, but he doesn't realize he can just pop the hinges off a locked door.
Well, I think the implication here is, and I guess I don't know whether I'm unfairly making allowances for the film or not. I think when you establish that we're sort of dealing with some supernatural shenanigans, then...
But then you have to really go... Then the window never should have opened in the bathroom. If he's completely confined in there and locked in there and there's no way out and it's supernatural shit keeping him in... Well, it opens,
but he can't get out of there.
No, he can't get out of there, but I mean, if that doesn't open, then he just suffocates. He eventually runs out of air because there's no flow.
Yeah, so, but I think...
You're making too many allowances for the minute plot holes that all they had to do is flip the door around.
I think
to avoid that situation.
I think part of this film, which makes it either interesting or frustrating, depending on your perspective, is that it isn't very heavy. You don't really know what's happening and why. There is no, like in Mary, you get that, like, this scene always drives me crazy in every film where you get the, like, the research scene where they start to, like, uncover the clues and they realize, like, oh, we now know the story of the past of who this ghost is and why they're haunting us and what's happening. You don't get that in this film. You don't get any of the what the fuck is actually happening.
Which
so
is
anything,
fine.
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting, but anything that you're going to, any interpretation you have is going to be just that, an interpretation. It seemed to me, my interpretation, that the boat is like toying with him, you know, and it's like testing him and challenging him and giving him just enough to where he like can survive it, but making it like really effing hard. I think because the boat will do things like he'll be locked in and then the door will just open and then he's fine. Or the boat's sinking and then it's not sinking and everything's fine. And it's like, I think that the boat's like playing a game with him. That's like my interpretation. The boat's like doesn't want him to die right away, but definitely wants him to go through hell for whatever reason.
Do you think there's any room for interpretation that there was actually somebody else on the boat the entire time?
Well, yes, because they certainly hinted it where he is hearing footsteps and there's like signs that there's definitely signs like from the get-go when he walks into the boat that someone was there very recently. There is a potential supernatural explanation for that, which I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but this film, I think definitely gives you like 4 or 5 plausible explanations, depending on ranging anywhere from it's all very logical and explainable to it's all very supernatural. And you sort of get to decide where you land. A lot of people interpret that what is happening and why he's like thinks there's somebody else on the boat as a time loop situation. Very similar to, this gets compared a lot to the movie Triangle. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a freaking phenomenal boat movie. But that, yeah, he's kind of going back and reliving this nightmare over and over again. And that what he's hearing is actually him in a different, like, timeline. But there's no, everything that I've seen, there's nothing where the director or writer came out and said, yeah, this is exactly what we meant. I think they intentionally were like, this is, you decide what this is and decide, how you're going to interpret this, which I think is really interesting. A lot of people are going to hate that because people who like very clear answers and who like to be able to know exactly like how they're supposed to interpret a film are going to be very frustrated because you don't get that.
So I'm in both boats on that one, you could say. I'm okay with open-ended interpretation so long as the creator, the writer, the director, whoever has final say in the story, I guess, does have a definitive answer in his head of what it actually is. It's fine to keep it open-ended, but to have it open-ended where the creator doesn't even know what is going on, that is where I draw the line of lazy. And I've said that before when it comes to filmmaking where it has open-ended, everything's up for interpretation, and even the creator doesn't really understand what's happening. that is lazy writing or lazy filmmaking or lazy storytelling, in my opinion. So I think of something like I'm not a fan necessarily of Christopher Nolan movies, but think of the end of like Inception with the top. Christopher Nolan knows what that means, but he left it up for the interpretation of everybody else to determine what that meant. You know what I mean? Whereas this one, it's like, well, what is it? Is it this? And if the director's never come out and said there is an actual explanation for it all, but I'm just not going to tell you, fine, leave it at that. But if he goes, well, it's just up for interpretation, everybody's going to have a different, that is incomplete storytelling. And that's what bothers me.
I don't know how you write a story without having a point of view. Like, I don't know any writer, just because you don't come out and say, I mean, there's a lot of writers who are famous for saying,
a wizard did it.
I refuse to, I think David Lynch is one, like, I refuse to explain anything.
That's fine. As long as he knows.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I don't know, maybe I'm giving people the benefit of the doubt, but I don't even know how you create a piece of art that if you don't have an opinion on it. Like, I'm sure when they wrote this, they had a story they were telling and they had a perspective. And I don't know any writer or director who's ever come out and been like, I don't know, I just made something and I guess whatever. Like, well,
they wouldn't word it like that, but they might word it in a way like I just said, like, oh, well, you know, everything is up for interpretation, and I'm not going to tell you either way if there is a right way or wrong way to interpret it, or something along those lines. That is code to me. Is I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I really disagree that you could even create a piece of art without having a perspective. Like, you might intentionally want it to be vague, and you might want to have enough like clues and red herrings so that it could be interpreted multiple different ways. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a perspective. Like, I just, like I said, and maybe I'm naive, I just don't even know how you create something without having a perspective.
I'm sure people do it all the time.
I don't know. That seems I don't know. Just seems like almost impossible, you know? Like, I feel like you have a story you want to tell, and you have to have, like, you have to know how it's going to end. You have to know, like, beginning, middle. You have to know, like, the trajectory.
You don't have to. So when I start, like, I've written a couple of books and shit. So, and everybody's got a different process. I'm going to say that right off the bat, right? Some people will sit down and write out a synopsis or a storyline or a timeline or whatever, and then kind of fill in the blanks as they go, or they'll have like a complete idea in their head. Can't tell you how many times I've sat down to write something and I know where it's going, but I don't know how it ends yet. And I kind of go along with the flow, and then if I have a certain line of dialogue or a certain thing that happens, and if it's in my head like this is how this is going to end, then I can't really explore that new branch. I just kind of create it on the spot that I think is really good. So I leave a lot of my endings and a lot of the third act based on how I wrote the first two acts of the story, essentially. And again, that's my process. So the first book I ever wrote, I had a completely different ending when I originally came up with the idea than what actually happened in the book. And that's, again, like, I go in with a line or an idea and I expand on it while I'm creating it. Because I don't want to close myself off to opportunities for potential changes or potential better ideas or potential this, that, or the other thing, right? But I mean, some people, like I said, some people have a more structured approach to creating something. They have an idea, they have a plot, they have a beginning, middle, and end, and that's exactly what they do, no matter what.
I feel like, so two things. I feel like, and this is not at all a slight against you and your writing process, but I do think a lot of times when you get really messy endings or things go off the rails at the end, it is because there was no defined structure. And so, like, well, I think that really gifted writers and stuff can, like, pull that off. A lot of writers cannot pull that off, and you can see it. You can see, like, oh my God, you had like two really strong acts in the third act, just like you're like, what the hell happened? I think that is because a lot of times people like don't necessarily have a very clear vision, and a lot of times you'll see this in television shows where the story will keep changing. The end destination, Ryan Murphy's kind of famous for this, of like not really knowing the end destination, and it's sort of changing as it goes, and then you feeling like, okay, what the hell happened at the end?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said with TV, that kind of makes sense because they're like, oh, we got renewed for another season. Fuck.
Yeah, or like so I'm rewatching this very vague aside. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm rewatching Buffy now. And I had read some interviews about Joss Whedon and how he, how that the character arcs and the things changed as it went along based on kind of audience reaction. Like, for example, Spike, who became like a fan favorite character, was never intended to be a long-term character or to become like a quote-unquote good guy. He was always meant to be like a villain and be kind of dealt with very early on, but he was so like beloved that Joss Whedon like totally changed the direction of the show because of that, and that happened numerous times. And so I think like with TV, a lot of times you are sort of reacting to what's happening in real times and changing direction. And I think it is different. My second point was that I think it's different to write a novel, which is sort of self-contained and where you don't have to worry about things like shooting schedules and storyboarding and funding and all and timing and all that kind of stuff, where you can be more organic and you can evolve things and change things. I think when you're writing a script, you cannot do that because you have to know, like, I've got 17 days to shoot this. I have to know all the beats. I have to know exactly, like, what's happening when. You don't shoot things in order most of the time. So I think it's a lot more structured. So I think when we're talking about script writing, a lot of the bringing into, like, well, what it's like to write a novel doesn't entirely translate just because of the nature of the medium. So my guess is that this is a very... And I think that... I don't know. I think they do have a perspective. And I think that but it's just one of those films where they're like, I'm going to give you enough to where you can interpret this in multiple different ways and you can sort of decide what kind of experience you want to have with a film. And I enjoy it because I think it's one of those where, I'm trying to think of examples of this, but films where you can watch it with a different perspective and have a different experience with the film. So you can watch it more than once. It has a rewatchability because you can be like, okay, now I'm going to watch this as a time loop film and I'm going to look for clues and I'm going to try to imagine that that's what's happening. Or now I'm going to watch this as a purely survival film with no supernatural elements. How does that change my experience engaging with this film? Which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, you and I have very different perspectives on movie watching. And again, that's because my brain is scattered, I would say. I prefer familiarity. When it comes, like, I would never watch this movie again, never. Because I didn't find it spectacular or great or anything. It was very forgettable for me. But it's the same with music. Like, I can listen to the same song on loop for 6 weeks straight, like thousands of hours, same song over and over and over and over again. I can watch the same movie over and over and over and over again if I really liked it, sort of thing. So I wouldn't watch this again from a different perspective. And I do this with video games too. Baldur's Gate just came out, it's a little side note, but it has 17,000 different endings based on your choices throughout the game. And I've played it through it twice, and I've done almost the exact same thing both times.
See, we are very different, as you mentioned, because I don't crave familiarity. I want to be challenged. I want to watch something and be like, I may have experienced things that felt somewhat similar, but I've never experienced this exact thing in this way. Which is why one of the reasons I love this film, because this is, regardless of how you think, let me say this, regardless of how you think it was executed, and regardless of whether it's your thing or not, because that's a whole separate, because I do think this is a film where it's either your thing or not. And if it is not your thing, it's not your thing. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't make it a bad movie because it's not your thing. It just means, like, this isn't for you. But regardless, all of that aside, this is a bold choice. Like, this is fearless filmmaking. Like, it is not a normal thing at all to have one location, and not just one location. It's not just that it's on a boat. Most of the film is in the bathroom of the boat. One location, one person, not a single other. A lot of times there's like at least like maybe very, very minor characters, but there's at least someone else. There isn't nobody else in this film. It is this one dude. And he almost says nothing. Like on paper, you see that and you're like, what the actual fuck? Like, are you crazy? And I love that kind of boldness and the ability to be like, sure, you've seen people. I mean, we just watched a film. You've seen like, supernatural haunted boats. You've seen people be trapped in a location. You've seen survival films. You've seen all this stuff before, but you've never seen it like this in this exact way. And again, that might not work for you, and I get it, but like, I do think you have to give props to a filmmaker for trying something that different. And for me, I think they really succeeded. And I get why they didn't for you, but I loved it because it did feel very like I was like, I haven't seen this before. Not like this.
I don't know. I mean, again, maybe it's the I don't know. It didn't feel new to me. It didn't feel like bold, as you put it. It felt meh.
You've never seen this before. Like, tell me another film that does this. Like,
takes
name
place
one
in
other
one
film.
location. There's plenty of movies. Fucking 127 hours takes place in basically one location the entire time, with a guy trapped between a rock and a hard place. I mean, it's not original.
One
it's not like it's
location,
never been done before. The fucking
only
Willem
one
Dafoe
character
movie that just came out.
and no dialogue.
What's the name of that Willem Dafoe movie that kind of came out recently, where he's trapped in a room and he has a pigeon friend, and that's it. Like, that's the movie. There's another movie, I want to say it has James Van Der Beek in it. I don't remember. It's a guy, he's in a cabin by himself, just him. That is it. Nothing else. There are tons of...
And there's no dialogue?
I don't know. I think he has like very minor conversations with himself in the mirror. But I think that's the extent of it. There are tons of movies that do isolation, zero dialogue, or very little dialogue, or it's not like it's never been done before. Maybe not on a boat bathroom, but there are definitely movies where people are trapped in one spot and there's very little else, or there's very few words spoken. It's not as original as you seem to think it is.
I think it's very, if not completely like, oh my God, it has never been done in the history of film before. Because I honestly don't believe that that's true of anything.
Of course, at this point in time, no.
I feel like, everything is somewhat derivative, and your job is to make it your own. But it's certainly not normal, and it's certainly unusual, and it certainly takes a lot of risks.
It goes against the mainstream.
Not what most people would sign up for, because it doesn't it sounds like, oh, how do you make that interesting for 90 minutes? I know you're going to say that they didn't make it interesting for 90 minutes. I think they did make it very, very compelling. And I was really it was nail biting for me. I was like, this is really, really intense, and really, and I loved, and I think that, and you're way more of a like technical guy than I am. Mm-hmm. But I thought technically it was really beautifully done, and shooting on open water is fucking hard. People do not realize, like, I don't know if anybody has read anything about the behind the scenes of Jaws, but Spielberg talking about like how effing hard that film was to make, and how much can go wrong, and how much coordination you have to be able to do it. And it's, when you watch it, you don't get it as an audience member, but just basically it is like one of the toughest things to do.
Well, for Jaws, I can see, because that was almost 45 years ago at this point. Technology has changed a lot since then, and it
doesn't make shooting on the ocean any easier.
Well, I assume what they meant was like, there's it's not stable, right? The boat's always going to be moving, and there's going to be like waves, and keeping the stability of the camera is a big obstacle, and having people not fucking fall over, I assume, would be a big obstacle as well. But with the like advent of Steadicams and in-body camera stabilization, you could fucking drive, you could put a camera on the hood of a car in it, like via some sort of Steadicam and drive over off-road shit and it wouldn't look bouncy.
I just love how you're like, oh, with modern technology, making a film is easy now. Like
it is 1,000 times easier than it was 45 years ago.
Okay.
You cannot tell me it's not. You don't need film anymore, so fucking up shoots doesn't cost you anything.
Sure, are there things that make life easier and that streamline it? Absolutely, but like there's like
even
enormous...
Kevin Smith has said like because he did a Q&A, not a stand-up, but he did a Q&A, and somebody asked him about like how to start making a movie because they want to start making a movie, and he goes, "Do you have a phone?" And the guy goes, "Yes." He's like, "Start with that."
I've heard this. Like, oh, there's the democratization of filmmaking. Sure, on paper, but like, there's a big difference between just shooting something and making it a reality and creating something that is immersive, that looks incredible, that feels very authentic, that feels cinematic. Like, there's a reason this shit costs so much fucking money is because the complexity of like, I've said this before, like, I don't on one hand, I get the idea of like anybody can make a movie and that sounds great, but I don't like the idea of making that seem like, oh, so it's super easy and everyone should do it. It's making a movie, and I forget who said this, like somebody said this recently, it's like any movie that gets made is a miracle, is a modern miracle. It's like there's so much that can go wrong and so much that has to go right for it to be something that is, you know, that works across the board. It's not easy, and I don't like the idea of us being like, oh, it's just point a camera at something and shoot it. It's fine. It's
I'm
so
not
much more than that.
I'm saying movies and creating anything today is so much more accessible and available to anybody than it was 45 years ago. 45 years ago, nobody had a literal camera in their pocket that could record high definition quality content or whatever. And it's a perspective thing, very much a perspective thing. And that reminds me of, I watch a lot of streamers on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. And there's one guy who's like, this is my job. I am at work right now. This is not easy to do. This is hard. This is my job. This is what I do every day, 8 hours a day, sometimes more, to make money. And then I flip over to another one, and there's another guy talking about the same things. Like, this isn't fucking work. This is fun. This is like, I get paid to sit down and play fucking video games. This is not a job. Working on an oil rig is a job. Anybody who says streaming is a job is mental. Like, the perspective. That's all that is. And I'm saying, just because you don't have $1 billion to make a movie doesn't mean you can't make a good movie. It's accessible. If you need to shoot your movie on an iPhone, you can do that. And it can be pretty good. There was what was the name of the movie? It was like one of those haunting in a hospital movies. And I think it had a girl from Glee in it. That was shot on the very same camera I owned at the time. Like a $1,500 camera. That's the only piece of equipment that they had to record video. And it had a huge release. Like, by huge, I mean like theatrical release. Made some money, I guess, anyway. But the difficulty of it isn't based on money or finances. Yes, it can cost a lot of money to make a movie, but it doesn't have to. And anybody can do it. If you have an idea, I suggest going. It doesn't have to be, maybe it won't be good, maybe it won't be great, maybe it'll be shit. But by saying that not everybody should be making movies is kind of mean.
I didn't say not everybody should be making movies, so don't put words in my mouth.
You said something along those lines.
No, I didn't. I said I don't think we should minimize the effort that is involved in making a good movie. Like, I love that. I'm a big, I think you should know this, I'm a big indie film supporter. Like, I love, and I even love micro budget. I love DIY. Like, I'm not as, you're the one who's way more technically harsh than I am. Like, I will forgive a lot if there's creativity and passion. I don't need it to look perfect. If there's effort, like I will still find reasons to praise a film. So it's insane to think that I'm sitting here going like, oh my God, only like people with a lot of money and whatever should be making films. I'm saying I don't like the idea that we minimize, like when somebody creates something like this with a pretty small budget and with very limited resources, and it looks the way it does, and it's as creative, and they take as many risks as they do. Like, I think that's worthy of praise. I don't think that's like, oh well, so anybody can do this. Like, I'm somebody who wants to celebrate the craft that's involved in this. And a good example, like you were talking about, oh well, it's so easy now. I do web design, and I started off in the world of like coding, where everything was like hand coded, and that's like the websites that I used to build, and it used to be very, very, very fucking hard. And now there's things like WordPress, which makes a lot of that much, much easier. It's a lot more plug and play. And yet, like, there is still enormous complexity that's involved depending on how far you want to take it. But because, like, there's so much, it offers so much more, there's also so much more to learn and so much more customization and stuff. And it's like, there's a level you could be at, like, you could do Squarespace or whatever and just throw a website up and it'll look good. And the average person will be like, that's fine. And you don't have to really know how to do anything. And so it does democratize the world of web design. But there's also another level where you can do infinitely more if you want to, which requires a great deal of skill and time and investment. And yes, you've got more tools and resources. And yes, it's easier than coding from hand, but that doesn't make it not a skill or an art form or something that you've got to be good at if you really want to take it to the next level. And the same thing with filmmaking. Sure, there are more tools, there are more resources, there's more accessibility, and all that's great. Like, technology is a great thing. Like, we have the capabilities to do like phenomenal CGI now. And yet you still see really shitty CGI because there is still skill involved, even though the tools and the resources are far, far advanced from what we used to have. You can go back and see a film from the 80s that uses CGI, and it can be better than a film that gets released today, depending on the artistry and the skill involved. So I don't think, my point is that I don't like to minimize it and be like, well, it's super easy now to point a camera and shoot. Saying that it is, when I see something like this that I feel like there's so much skill and artistry involved, I want to celebrate that and recognize that that's hard work.
Okay. I mean, like, we could go back and forth on this forever.
Yeah.
It's as somebody who has done these things, like movies, on
you
Zero.
You haven't made a movie. You haven't made a feature film.
I haven't made a feature film, but it's still shooting a movie. I've been in movies that have been feature film length. I wasn't part of the entire process, but I've been in scenes or whatever that are feature. I think it was feature length. I haven't seen it yet, but that's neither here nor there. It's not as complicated as a lot of people make it out to be.
You're okay.
I'm just saying.
I mean,
have you ever been on a movie set?
I haven't, but you know what?
Have you ever shot a movie?
All right.
Regardless of budget or length or whatever.
No, but
exactly.
Okay.
So I can tell
that
you, like,
doesn't mean
it's the same in the world of photography, and I don't necessarily enjoy that everybody has a fucking 46 megapixel camera in their pocket, because it takes away from what I try to do as a living. But it's possible. I would never be like, I would never tell somebody not to do it because they don't have the right equipment.
But do you think that okay, let me ask you this question then, as a professional photographer.
Yes.
The fact that anyone can take a picture with an iPhone and it can look pretty good. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you bring nothing to the table because everyone has the same equipment? So what the fuck are you?
It's a lot harder to bring something to the table. Yes. It's a lot harder to justify
you have a problem
to people.
marketing yourself because
no, it's a lot
you
harder
should be
to
like, okay, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, it doesn't matter how much experience or how much skill you have doing something. 90% of people go, if I can do it myself for free, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, but that's when you have to have the confidence to be like, sure, anyone, air quotes, can do it, but not everyone is going to bring the level of skill and artistry that I bring to the table. And that is worth everything. It's like, sure, the equipment is important. And like a phenomenal photographer can take phenomenal pictures with like a really shitty camera. Like vice versa, a amateur shitty photographer can take shitty photographs with a really badass top of the line,
100%.
Best money can buy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like resources are important and they give you opportunity, but there is immense skill that is going into creating art that is valuable beyond just the resources.
Sure.
It's like I'm a graphic designer and I get a lot of, I have this program or I know how to use this or I can, use this like free thing and I can make something and I'm a designer. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you have the tools and that's great. And I'm not saying people, like, you don't have to have a formal education to be a great designer. You just have to have the it factor. You have to have the thing. And I've met plenty of highly trained designers who aren't good. They don't have an eye. And then I've met people who don't have a formal education who are brilliant. And resource aside, doesn't matter what tools they use. Like, a brilliant designer can use Word and make something amazing. They aren't going to like it. They're not going to be very happy about it, but they can do it. And you can give somebody, all the Adobe software, the best money can buy, and they're going to make shit because they don't have the skill. They don't have the artistry, the talent. And that's all I'm saying. It's not that I think anybody who wants to make a film should make a film. I love the democratization of it. I love that it's accessible. I love that I don't know, I want to say affordable. It seems like even micro budget shit is like, oh, if I spend $100,000, that's like nothing. And to me, I'm like, I don't have $100,000 to make something. But I love that you can do it if you want to do it. And I think you should. I'm just saying I don't think we should minimize and say that there's not a lot of like talent that goes into making these films.
I'm not saying there's no talent. That's not what we were talking about. We were talking about difficulty. But that's neither here nor there. I
mean, I haven't been on a set, but I've read a lot of behind the scenes. I've done a lot of interviews. I've talked to people. I hear them talk about the challenges of getting these shots. Like I read behind the scenes of this film, and they were talking about how hard it was to film. Who's
going to say, "Oh, this was easy"? Nobody's going to come out and say, "Oh, what I did was easy to do."
I don't think it's I mean,
nobody's ever going to say that. People are going to make up shit because it's more compelling when you say,
"That's ridiculous." That's
no,
fucking
it is
insane.
not. What? No way.
So they made up a whole story about how they shot the scene that they were in the bathroom with the storm. They just made up a story to make it sound compelling. It was really super easy.
I'm not saying that.
It's a dumb thing to say.
Nobody's ever going to come out and say, this was a super easy shoot. We had no issues. There was no challenge behind it. We set up a camera. We did it. Boom, 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 done. Nobody's ever going to say that.
I've heard plenty of like directors be like, this was the smoothest, easiest, least complicated shoot I've ever done. Like, I don't think they're just out there trying to make themselves seem better than they are.
So you're saying nobody has ever exaggerated the challenges or struggles they went through just for a story's sake?
I'm not ever going to say no one has ever done or said anything, no matter what. Because that's stupid, because everyone has done or said everything under the sun at some point. But the exception doesn't make the rule, like it's not saying, oh, just because somebody's exaggerated means that every single filmmaker who tells you that it's hard is just blowing smoke so that they seem like they're better than they are. Like, that's a nutty,
I would say there's a lot of
I
would say there's a ton of exaggeration when it comes to shit like
what
that.
The fuck are we even doing? Like,
I don't know,
but craziest shit.
I'm just saying,
have we gone off? Like, do we just not know how to podcast anymore? Because this is fucking insanity that this is what we're doing right now.
It's applicable. We're arguing. That's what people want.
I don't know. Do they want this? Do they? Because I don't know. Like, I feel like my head's gonna explode.
It always goes down the road of is filmmaking process, and then we go on a tangent from there. It's usually how these podcasts end.
Oh God. I must have just forgotten. It's been too long because I mean, I expected us to argue about this film, but I did not expect it to like go this way for sure.
Yeah.
I don't even know what we're arguing about at this point. I'm just
I don't
like,
know
what even is our premise at the end of the day?
Our premise is to get more reviews, so go review the fucking podcast.
I mean, I had shit I wanted to say about this film, but now I guess
well, it's been like
not.
an hour and a half.
I know, and I don't think I've said anything that I wanted to say.
You liked it. That's all that matters.
I didn't want to say any of this. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really, really smart and really compelling and really like nail biting. And I think it leaves the ending very open ended in a really interesting way. And I think if Casey and I hadn't fought for like 2 hours about nothing, then we could have talked about some of the interesting theories about what's happening and why, but we're not going to do that. So that's
we touched on a few. We touched on time loop. We touched on haunting or possession of the boat or whatever. And we talked about potentially somebody on there. What else is there?
Nothing, I guess.
Exactly.
All right.
Good. Well, that's going to, I think, end us for today.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, anyway, that's going to be
well, don't say that. Jesus. I know you don't edit this, but edit that part out.
We'll see. Yeah, so this has been Cheer and Loathing. If you liked what you heard, absolutely leave a review. If you do, let us know, and we will shout you out or read it, potentially.
And honestly, if you didn't like what you heard, just like pretend that you didn't hear it and go listen to some of the other episodes that you might like, because I don't want you to be like, well, that sucked, and then review us badly.
Well, yeah, you got to listen to more than like one
I'm not
episode.
sure we were on our A game today, but
are we ever?
But we have been before. No,
I guess maybe like, September 15th, 2019, I think was pretty good.
That was a good one. That was a really good one. Yeah.
Yeah, go listen to that one.
Were we even podcasting then?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think so, but
no,
sure.
We're in 2023. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've been doing this like, what, a year?
Yeah,
2
I thought it was 2020 for some reason.
How? Wow, God, Jesus. See, you're in a time loop. You've gone back in time now.
I wish.
Yeah. Well, this happened.
This was a thing.
we did it.
This was an episode of all time.
Oh my God. Let's not do that again. Let's just like, I don't know. Like, I want to fight, but just, I feel like we go down this like super nerdy technical thing that everybody is like just zoned out. I'm like, what the fuck are they even doing?
Let's be honest. Nobody got this far in the episode.
Well, that's comforting at least. Thank God that nobody heard us go off the rails. They were like, after the first 10 minutes, they're like, yeah, I got the gist. That's fine.
Yep. She liked it. He didn't. Awesome.
Well, I mean, thank God for small miracles, right?
Yes.
You got to take your wins where you can. Take the W.
There was a penis joke in there I didn't make.
There's always a penis joke you didn't make. Usually they're penis jokes that you do make.
That's true. I'm trying to rein it in.
There is always a penis joke in there somewhere for you. I don't know how. Like, no matter what I say, you're like, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, one of those.
One of them.
Would have some fascinating things to say about that, about your obsession with penises and having to always bring them up. But I'm not trained to do that, yeah. So
well,
I'm not going to. But I'm just saying, I think there's some stuff in there that we could explore if we wanted to.
Sure, penises are fun.
I mean, a lot to unpack there, and that's another whole other podcast.
Until next week, I guess, when we talk about penises.
Maybe can we do penis horror somehow? Like, let's figure out.
I'm sure there's plenty of that. Any like Tremors basically is a giant penis. So
phallic symbol horror.
Symbol horror. There we go.
Could be interesting.
Could be. There'd be a lot of dick jokes.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of dick jokes even when we're talking about like boat movies. So imagine if we were talking about phallic symbol movies.
I would purposely not make a single one the entire episode.
Yeah. Just really highbrow it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was fun.
Yes. Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye.